What's up, everybody? Welcome to the House of Mario, the South Australian Nintendo podcast that is backed by a 120 Power Star rating. I'm your host, Drew Agnew, and the doors to episode 155 are open. This week on the show, we're going to be discussing a lot of things, so many things, including Nintendo first-party developers and when they're going to be bringing out a game, because it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And to discuss all that is my wonderful BTD. It's Bryce DeWitt. How you going, mate?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm going very well, man. How are you?
Yeah. about as good as life is.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That's good. So, as good as life is, how do I respond to that?
Well, you know, you could respond to it in many ways. You could just be like, well, somebody kicked my dog and I had to chase him down the street with my towel. You know, you could just make something up.
Is that what you had to do? Is that why you're so down?
No.
No, that's all right then.
No, thank God for that.
Well, I missed last week. It's it's the second time I've ever missed an episode of the show, Bryce. So you did a great job last week hosting the show with Peachy. It was fun it's fun sitting back and actually having a listen for once rather than being on it.
Yeah, it's a shame about your dental appointment though.
Yeah. So last week I missed my dental. I didn't miss it. I went to the hospital to get my 4 wisdom teeth out, and they asked me, "So do you have a cough?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do have a cough." And they went, "Oh no, coronavirus. Oh no, we can't do you anymore." I was like, are you serious? Because like I wouldn't have. Like I was a little bit concerned as well. So I've got a cough. You know, I'm doing a dental procedure in the mouth. It makes sense to be a bit concerned. But the hospital rang me and they said, you know, "Do you have a cough?" And I said, "Yeah." And they didn't really seem to care much. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, you know, I don't have symptoms. I don't have any other symptoms. So I guess they're not too worried about it. But they were.
They were, yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. So how did you find being the host? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I last did it. And I mean, like, I guess last time I did it with Dylan.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, you know, we're both podcasters. We could bounce off each other really well. Whereas this time I'm like, I'm going to opt for a greenhorn and see how I go with that. And like, you know, our experience was good overall and it worked. And like, I can bounce off him all right because we talk to each other all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So it was good. Shame about some of the audio issues. I tried to clean it up as much as possible. But yeah, you know, other than that, like a bit of a story behind that basically is we had technical issues for the first 2 hours. And it was really shitty. Our solution ended up being him plugging in 2 headsets. Because at first I was like, you know, he's using a gaming headset similar to mine, right? Same brand, like same series. I'm like, okay, I know the series of those mics is good. The headsets are fine. He'll be able to hear me. There's no problem. I'm like, great, let's give it a crack. And then for some reason, his microphone would record literally everything. In Audacity. So that includes my voice, that includes his voice. Like we could have almost pretty much just used his Audacity recording for the episode, but we didn't, obviously, because, you know, being a headset, it picks up literally everything.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and just make sure that like there wasn't any existential breaths and stuff like that at the start and all that. He did a really good job at monitoring his own audio for somebody that was using a gaming headset, and he noticed after the first 10 minutes that like his breathing was very accentuated, so he cut back on it. And like managing 2 headsets trying to do that, I would imagine be a massive pain in the ass, but he pulled it off, and that meant I only really had to clean up the first 10 minutes, and even then it was basically just like making sure that the breathing bits and like some of the little nuances were cleaned up. But apart from that, yeah, it turned out pretty alright, which is good.
Was he using a webcam? Could you see him sort of MacGyvering it together, holding it all up?
No.
That would have been pretty funny to see, actually.
It would have been pretty funny to see because I could only imagine exactly how it would have went. But you know, he managed it. He did have a microphone somewhere, like a proper microphone, but he's moved a few times since he's last used it.
Right.
so he doesn't even know if he has it anymore.
It's an expensive
So-
loss. Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't. You know, it was like snowball grade, if not a bit lower.
Mm.
You know, so it was just something that he sort of picked up for doing Twitch streaming, which is something that I mentioned he does from time to time at the end of the episode. But he's going through a revamp and sort of trying to figure out his hardware and stuff.
Yeah.
And he would have just used that microphone for streaming probably. But he's like, I think it's around here somewhere. Go look. Couldn't find it while I was trying to figure out our technical issues. So it's just like, all right, well, I'll try this instead. So he tried 2 headsets and it worked. So, you know, it's good.
Yeah, the story of a podcast, right? There's always something wrong. That's why when it came to getting this Rodecaster, it's kind of like, you know what, I'll spend the money because this thing is a godsend.
Yeah.
And getting this all working. Yeah.
Yeah. What, $700, and like it's the best piece of equipment we've ever bought for the show.
Yeah.
Like by any other standard. Like we've had microphones and stuff like that. Obviously our microphones are good and we love them, and like they do the job they need to. But that Rodecaster is just, the epitome of like perfect purchases for a podcast.
Yeah. I reckon Rode would be the perfect sponsor for this show because I absolutely love this thing. I'll say as many good things about it as possible. If anyone out there wants to spend a bit of money and be able to record a podcast real easy, it's really, really useful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, Bryce, I'm happy you're going well, even though you said you're going as well as life could be. I don't know what even that means. But I assume you're going well, Bryce. I hope you're going well.
Yeah, we're going good apart from some, sick kids, which is why I'm currently recording from home.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
again, coronavirus.
Yeah, Bryce is coming in remotely because he doesn't want to pass on any strains of whatever his kids have, which is fair enough. I appreciate that. I don't want any strains coming into the house of Mario necessarily, and vice versa. If I've got any strains, I don't want them going into the house of Bryce.
No, that's exactly right. Even though like both times that we're like feeling a bit sick, we've interacted with each other in some way. I delivered you dinner when you were sick the other week, and we traded some trash Pokemon for like a challenge, like a mission thing on Go.
Yeah, you had to deliver me fish and chips because I couldn't leave my house because I just had a corona test, which was a lot of fun. It wasn't too bad. The actual test wasn't too bad. It made my eyes water up when it went up the nose. But like the next couple of days, like my top of my nose just felt real bruised on one side where it went up.
Yeah.
So that was.
I would only imagine that'd be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it wasn't super bad. If anyone's worried about having to do it, you'll get over it. Type of thing. It's not too bad.
Just get it done. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think you need to, get it done.
Yeah. Yes. Get it done.
Get it done.
So, Bryce, before we move into some Nintendo news, we've got some announcements to make. So, the first one might be obvious depending on where you're consuming this podcast, but now the House of Mario is available on video over on youtube.com/iDrewby or whatever the URL is going to be. I think you need to reach like 100 subs to get that, so not quite there yet. But we're on video now, so it might have been obvious that Bryce is sitting in his little dungeon by himself and I'm here by myself.
That's right, yeah.
So I guess any concerns that people think, the show's moving to video, so now it's going to be more video orientated. Don't worry about that. The main focus will always be the audio side of things. Mainly, even if it's just my own bias, that I personally listen to all my podcasts in audio. And one of our listeners, Jamie Penning, actually brought up like he doesn't quite like it when he's listening to a podcast and they're referring to go and watch the video version to see something. Because, like, you're in the car. It's like, go and watch the YouTube video. It's kind of like, no. I've decided to listen to it like this. Why would I go to YouTube just so I can see you hold up a plush toy or whatever it is? So no concerns there. It's just an extra option if you want to consume us in a video way. You might have dual monitors on your PC and you might be gaming and you might want a podcast in the background. So now we're there on YouTube.
Yeah,
and it should hopefully
easy access.
Yeah, and hopefully it helps with some searching and people discovering the show for the first time. So yeah, if that is you discovering us for the first time on YouTube, there's other 154 episodes available on podcast services. So there's your backlog.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big one.
Don't go back too far though.
No,
I'll be
no.
embarrassed. Go back to
like as far as back as like friggin' episode 10.
oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe episode 100. Start there.
Yeah.
And another big one, but so I'm been looking forward to doing this for a long time. I'm actually starting up a brand new Nintendo podcast. That's going to go side by side with this one, and it's called the House of Mario Encore. And basically, it's going to be a solo podcast with myself or Bryce whenever he wants to jump in, just discussing Nintendo topics that are mainly evergreen, not revolving around news. So really looking forward to getting to that one. That's going to be on YouTube as well as podcast services. It's going to be in its own podcast feed. So if you don't necessarily need more content from us, it's not going to fill up your feed. But if you do, obviously we really appreciate if you go over and check it out. The first episode is basically about meeting me and getting a better idea of my gaming habits and sort of what got me into gaming and all of that. And I got to admit, when I first started, I was a bit rusty getting into the intro because it's a brand new intro and I kept on fucking it up. And I have a lot of bloopers on my computer, I tell you that. But once I got through that intro and I just started talking, I went for an hour and a half. So it's a long one. Not every episode's going to be that long. I'm thinking anywhere from 30 minutes to like maybe 45 minutes, depending on the topic, how deep I need to go on. But yeah, we're looking forward to that one. That comes out Thursday as this podcast is being recorded. So if you're listening on like the day this comes out or the day after, it's almost out. But sorry, Bryce, you go.
It's good to note that we have messed with this concept before, and we do have an episode similar on our feeds, but we're revamping it, much like what we did with one of our other podcasts, Cracking Furfies.
Yeah. So because the House of Mario Encore, it was originally on Patreon. We sort of wanted a way to offer people that are supporting us on Patreon some more Nintendo content. And I don't know about you, Bryce, but I really enjoyed just sitting down and going deep and dirty onto like a certain topic.
And blabbering.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be like a fun thing to actually do each week or whatever. And looking at sort of my schedule going into like shearing season and that, this year shearing is going to be very, very interesting because New Zealanders can't get into Australia. So we're going to be lacking a lot of shearers. And that means there's going to be a lot more work. It's going to be a lot more busy. So I don't know what my schedule is going to be over the next 4 months of this year. It's going to be a bit interesting, but I'm going to hope to try and be organized and keep it coming each month or each week. Sorry. But going into that, Bryce, I'm going to start a giveaway for the House of Mario Encore. And if we reach 50 iTunes or Apple Podcast reviews for the House of Mario Encore, within, say, 2 months, I'm going to give away a Nintendo Switch game to someone who leaves a review. So just to encourage, people, give back to our community that support us and also sort of encourage Apple Podcast reviews because it's really quite important that we try and get a good kickstart for this show. Growing this show, it was very slow, sort of like the first couple of years. But I feel like now we're at the point where we can try and have at least a little bit more of a lead on that. So when it comes out, jump over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. And if you haven't left a review for the House of Mario, go over there too. For the love of God.
Better do that.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the House of Mario Encore, Bryce? Looking forward to getting it out there?
Yeah, like for sure. And I'm pretty sure I was the person who did the first episode that went up on podcast services.
You were, yeah. You did it all about Rare.
Yeah, that's right. And then one more after that, which was mobile games. Yeah. So they were really fun to do. Like just to sort of sit back and, yammer on and whatever. And then we got a bit busy because I believe that happened just before sort of summertime last year, I think.
Yeah.
And, summer's really busy for both of us in general, I think. So it was sort of just like, well, we'll just see how we go. And now we're sort of coming back to it. We're like, if we tried to put it out more often, take it off Patreon, sort of make it more of a consumable thing, and just have fun with it, that's the good way to go. I guess, and it'll be good fun.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a really quite unique product in the podcasting space as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because like a lot of Nintendo podcasts, they are kind of similar to what our format is, and we'll definitely not the first ones to do this either.
No,
but yeah, the House of Mario Encore, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play around with. And
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Just on my end, I'm sorry if the rain's picking up, but it's just pelting down with rain outside. Is it raining real hard at your place?
Yeah,
I can hear. I can hear it through my headphones. I'm like, holy shit!
I had the same concern myself. I'm like, oh crap, that's going to come through the audio.
Yeah, it just started bucketing down. I'm like, oh my god! And like, I don't have a tin roof here, and I really miss it because I don't hear the rain at nighttime in bed anymore. And I absolutely used to love that when I lived back at the farm. I was just thinking, like, for podcasting, imagine if that happened whenever it rained, you could hear the rain on the tin roof. It's like, maybe it's a good thing I don't have a tin roof.
As a podcaster, yes.
Yes. Otherwise, you have to get up and you have to like foam your your whole ceiling on the outside. See what that looks like.
You're like up there in the weather. You're like, stop.
Quiet, I'm trying to record a House of Mario.
I don't want to hear it.
All right, Bryce. Enough of that. Would you like to move into some news, or would you like to not move into some news?
Yeah, I'll try and sync up the I Fight for My Friends. Wait for it to fail, but it'll be worth it.
All right. Good luck, my friend.
All right.
Woohoo! Yeah! Is that all?
I
fight for my friends.
I fight still.
All right, Bryce. Very sad to report you failed that sync up.
I knew I would online, so
yeah,
it's
hard.
It's really hard. I actually got a comment about it in the Discord because we're not used. Obviously, I don't have a road here, so it's sort of like, well, trying to do something like that, like I have to do the editing and everything, and I was like really keen to do it, but because of all the technical issues and stuff we had, I ran out of time, and I'm just like, I don't have the time to do it. But I was going to like get to a certain point, cut it, do something with it, and then cut back to it to finish off the news theme. And I swear to God, I'm going to do it one day.
I swear to God.
And I'm going to put it in there, and it's going to be it's going to be a surprise. You don't know when it's coming, but I'll do it, and you'll appreciate it, hopefully.
Well, there should be, when you're over here next at the House of Mario, I think there should be a button for like to cut it, and then we can start. You can be able to do it on the fly, hopefully, if you really want to.
Maybe, but at the same time, I kind of want to do an edited thing.
It's funny because I was listening to the show. I was walking up the street, and like that bit came on. I'm like, oh, here we go. Bryce is editing the thing because you were talking about it all week. You're looking forward to putting it in.
I wanted to do it so bad,
but it just never happened. I'm like, you bastard! He didn't do it.
I was going to.
Yeah, but I obviously knew. You kept me up to date of what was happening with your technical issues. So I'm like, you obviously did not get the time.
No, because we wanted it uploaded the next morning, so that we got finished at like 12 o'clock at night, and obviously, I had to do the audio cleanup and the write up and all that stuff, and I'm just like, oh, by the time I'm done, it's gonna be like 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't.
It's fun, isn't it?
I can't do it. Well, look, if we didn't have the technical issues, and I would have been like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would have been like, hell yeah, that's great, I'll do that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I had work the next morning or something, and I was just like, yeah, it's not happening. But oh well.
So that's not the news this week, but it's a pretty light week on news, Bryce. So the first one is from Vooks.com, and it was written by Oliver Brandit. And the title is Aussie-made projection first light finally coming to Nintendo Switch next month. And the article reads, it's been a long time in the making, but a beautiful Aussie-made game is finally making its way into the Switch. Blowfish Studios and Shadowplay Studios have announced that projection first light will be making its way onto the Nintendo Switch, as well as PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC next month on September 29th. The game had previously been slated for for Switch in the lead up to its internal release, but the port ultimately had been put on hold when the game was revealed to be launching as an Apple Arcade exclusive in what appears to have been a 12-month exclusivity contract. But now that time is up, it's finally on the way, and thank goodness too, because it's absolutely beautiful game. When we played the game at PAX 2017, it left us wanting more of its beautiful shadow puppetry, unique game mechanics, and fascinating game design. So yeah, this was a game we played, Bryce, and we really enjoyed as well, and we talked to the developer and all that, and it was kind of a shame when they announced that it wasn't coming to Switch anymore because of the Apple Arcade exclusivity. And just not leaving this story, but also in the same vein, Oceanhorn 2 is also coming to Switch later this year as well. It's also an Apple Arcade exclusive game last year when Apple Arcade launched on Apple devices. But yeah, Projection First Light is just a perfect game for the Switch in just the way it looks, and it's just really awesome art style. It's just unique as well how it sort of plays with the shadows in the gameplay as well, as trying to platform through certain levels and manipulate shadows to get to certain areas and everything. And it can be quite tricky, even in the demo we played. So yeah, what do you think about it? You reckon you'll pick this up or interested in it at all?
I mean, I'll pick it up eventually. I think obviously the biggest thing is the launch price, because by God, there's just so much of everything that I still haven't bought that I was like, yep, I'm gonna buy that. Yep, I'm gonna buy that. Never happened. Like, one of those things being Ukulele and Impossible Lair. That's something I'm still gonna get.
Yeah, the same for me.
And with the last Switch sale, I think I picked up like 10 games for like $80, and they weren't like, a lot of them were like, fairly good games too, and including like a big cut slash on like Monster Hunter Gen U. Yeah, and I was just sort of like, well, that'll keep me going for a while. I think I've bought one game since that digitally, and that was Insane Trilogy, because that got cut half off, and I was just like, I really should go back and finish a couple Crash games, because I've never actually gone back and finished them. And then, since then I've been like, all right, I've got far too much crap I've got to play. I've really got to play through that before I consider anything else. And everything keeps coming. And I'm just like, damn, I really should buy that. And I'm like, I've got so many games in my backlog. I've got enough physical games in my backlog, let alone digital ones. I'm like, all right, I need to slow down. I need to be a bit more concise about how I'm picking these things. And I need to wait for sales if I want to buy things, because chances are I know I'm not getting back around to them anytime soon.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to that, dude. Just like, oh no.
It's just been worse recently, and I think it's because of that last sale where I picked up 10 games. I'm just like, there is so many games on my Switch that I need to play now. I went and bought a 512 gigabyte Samsung Evo micro SD.
Yeah.
Like top of the range micro, just to make sure that I don't have any like data losses or anything like that, but still big enough for me to be like, all right, I can store a lot of games. And like I haven't even half filled that yet, but I feel like I've re-downloaded my entire library, and I'm like, as I was doing that, I'm like, haven't finished, haven't even touched, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself?
Yeah, that's what my library's like as well.
Oh dear Lord.
So I mean, Projection for me is definitely something that's going to be added to the wish list.
Yeah.
Just at the same weird.
Yeah.
And like just for the reason and what you just brought up, that's also the reason where I'm not like, oh, come on, Nintendo, where are the games? Because I'm kind of like, oh, I've got a lot of games.
Like far too many.
Yeah. I guess speaking of potential games from Nintendo, this is from Nintendo Enthusiast, and it's written by John Frisker. And the article, the title is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Switch is listed on Amazon UK. And the title, God, I can't talk. The article reads, either Amazon UK has made a huge error, which is entirely possible since this could be far from the first time that a mistaken Amazon listing has been created. Or The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Twitter deals guru Wario64 made the listing public, and it currently has a placeholder date for January 1st, 2030, at a price of a fat £70, which is more than the full price or high in general for what was a Wii game, although Pikmin 3 Deluxe will be releasing at full price. Depending on how you look at it, that either lends credence to Skyward Sword Switch listings being bogus, or a special edition and/or comes bundled with a special controller like the original Wii release. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to back this up, but it appeared on Amazon UK, and a lot of people are going, "Oh, are we getting a Skyward Sword port or remake or whatever you have?" But to be honest, I personally don't believe this. I don't see this happening this year especially, but maybe even early next year. But what do you think when you sort of heard some of these rumblings about Skyward Sword being listed on Switch?
I mean, these, the thing is this has been talked about a lot, and then it was even questioned, and representatives or whoever got back to them said it's not being planned. It's not even being planned at this time or anything like that. We have no intention of going back and doing that at this time. And I feel like that's probably the next step for them in terms of HD remasters after the fact that we've had Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. So I do sort of feel like, but at the same time, that also sort of lends to the fact that maybe it should just be a collection like the supposed Mario collection's coming out. I really don't see it happening either. And I'm not the biggest fan of Skyward Sword, and a lot of people will sort of tell you that, whoever ever talked to me about Zelda, because I just find its backtracking absolutely horrendous. But there are times where I'm just like, I feel like playing Skyward Sword, and I definitely can't play Skyward Sword anymore. Like, I've got my Wii at mum's, sure, but unfortunately I had a battery leakage in my only Wii Remote Plus, so can't do that either. Don't have the game anymore. I could borrow it, but then I don't have a Wii Remote Plus, so then I would have to get a Wii Remote Plus just so I could play Skyward Sword, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good. So this is one of those things I'd be like, I'll pick it up because I just want to play it again for the sake of it, and like there are parts about the game that I do miss, but I think it is a huge far cry from, actually being released on the Switch for now. If they do decide to do this Mario collection, which has been rumored since the start of the year, I think it could be pretty plausible that they do a Zelda one next year. But in saying that, Breath of the Wild 2 will also more than likely come next year. So
yeah,
I don't see why.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into this in Reggie's Rec Room, sort of, what we think will be coming end of this year, next year. But I think just with the Mario collection, I think it's kind of it's almost certain that's true. Those rumors, just with Pikmin 3 now being announced, because it was originally a Paper Mario Pikmin, then Mario 3D World port, as well as the bundle of games, and now we're only missing the Mario portion of that rumor. So it seems like that's what's going to happen, and it seems like a pretty logical thing to sort of put together when some other projects might be far away. Bundle up some Mario games, do a Mario port. It's a pretty good way to sort of cater to the holiday audience, to sell some more Switches and maybe go against the next consoles as well and all that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
Yeah. The thing is with Skyward Sword as well, it's just it needs to be reworked a lot, because it was just so heavy on motion controls. Like, even if you're sitting at your TV holding your Joy-Cons, I just don't think the accuracy is enough for the most part for the Joy-Cons.
No, because the Joy-Cons are made more with the consensus that they're being used as a sometimes thing when it comes to the motion controls. They're not made with the same intention of a Wii remote as like this is the main basis of the console.
Mm.
So, it would have to change a bit. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think I would have a problem with them just making like Skyward Sword, but with normal controls.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. But the amount of work would have to go into that to sort of just redo puzzles and stuff, it'll
I
probably
don't
be
think,
a fair bit.
maybe. I don't think it'd have to be that bad. I think you could still, like, if you had a pro controller, the Joy-Cons, you could still manage the puzzles and stuff like that. That I think the biggest problem is the combat.
Yeah.
But at the same time as well, they can just make it so that the combat hit detection is no matter where you hit an enemy, it's going to be a hit. But that will also make the game infinitely easier by doing that way.
Yeah.
So it's neither here nor there. I don't think they could ever bring back Skyward Sword in the same sort of way that they've done it with the other two, because the other two obviously don't have that problem. But maybe they will go with the approach of the typical Zelda way of things, which is like you hold forward and press B for a vertical slice, or have a neutral stick for horizontal slice, and that's probably about as much of a like difficulty curve as they're going to be able to implement into it. But hopefully they can find a way to work it if it ever does come to fruition, because I don't think it's a waste of a Zelda game, as a lot of people seem to, because I feel like it has like a great amount of lore and stuff like that as well. But I just feel like it wasn't executed as well as it could have been.
I mean, yeah, the lore side of it was awesome. That's what made that game. Like learning about the Triforce and the origins of Hyrule, and it was just fascinating when you're going through the game. It's just, I think it definitely suffered from just running out of time just to make areas, because so much of the time was focused on developing the controls. Miyamoto and the team actually discussed that in some, I don't know if it was a Wider Ass or some interview somewhere, but they did mention that a lot of the time was just trying to figure out the controls and the combat and everything. And I think just the areas got left out, and you can sort of see that on the map too. You can see like the volcano, the desert, and the forest. You can see like other bits of the map they were meant to fill out, but it just never gets filled out. So you end up going back, and they just pad out the game with existing areas. So personally, for me, if they were really going to fix that game, for me, they would add more areas. Personally, like they would actually put more content into the game.
I would like them to see them actually flesh out the map of Hyrule, so it's an actual map of Hyrule.
Yeah, because it didn't feel like Hyrule at all when you went down there.
No, it didn't, because it was just like, here, you dropped into an area, and then it was 3 areas, and then it was basically just like, what changes after the midway point when you get the Master Sword in these 3 areas? It's like, the volcano, it is overrun by Ganon minions. Hooray. And then it's like, the forest, oh my god, it is flooded. Dear Lord, what do we do? Like, damn. Yeah, it's not enough.
No.
My god.
All right,
I need to turn the sound off on my devices. Give me a moment. Just keep going.
I'll give you a moment. I'll move into the next story. And Bryce, you did touch on this last week with Animal Crossing sales. So basically, Nintendo's financial results came out last week, and they're absolutely huge. So we know that Animal Crossing has sold 22.4 million units in pretty much three months. It's been 4 months, but these are of I think the June 30th. So it's only been 3 months, and Animal Crossing is already the second best selling game on Switch. And as Bryce said last week, which I actually learnt about when I talked to Bryce, it's the second best selling game in Japan of all time, which is just ridiculous. Like, what the hell? What the hell? But just as far as other game sales go, we'll start from the bottom. So Ring Fit Adventure is at 3.9 million. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is at 7.44 million. Super Mario Party is at 10.94 million. Splatoon 2 is at 10.71 million. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee is at 12.20 million. Pokemon Sword and Shield is at 18.22 million. Super Mario Odyssey is 18.06 million. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is at 18.6 million. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is at 19.99 million, so it would have cracked 20 million by now.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at 26.74 million. And there's some other sales figures as well, which weren't actually updated this quarter, which is really weird. So I don't know if that's just because they weren't worth updating. But there's some Luigi's Mansion 3 as of last quarter was at 6.33 million. Super Mario Maker 2 was at 5.48 million last quarter. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening was at 4.38 million last quarter. And some other interesting ones in there. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was at 1.08 million last quarter as well. So even Marvel Ultimate Alliance cracked 1 million in sales, which isn't that surprising because it's a Marvel property, but it was also one of those Switch exclusives you didn't really hear that much about. But it still managed to crack it. Sold pretty much the same as Astral Chain, which is pretty much at the exact same sales figures of last quarter. So yeah, Nintendo Switch games are just absolutely killing it. So we're gonna end up with over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's gonna be over 6 games that are gonna probably approach 20 million sales, and they're all Switch exclusive, which is just nuts. And just like in context, like all 6 of those games have outsold any exclusive PlayStation 4 has. Which is just crazy considering the install base of that console. So, yeah.
What, 100
about 110, roughly, as of the last time they updated it, yeah.
Yeah. Huge. Jesus. Huge.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things, because I last week, I actually got kind of nostalgic. And I was playing with the Wii U, and because I picked it up because my TV remote doesn't have any batteries in at the moment. It ran out of batteries, and Chantel took them out and never bothered to replace them for whatever reason. So we had to turn down the volume. So I've got the Wii U still plugged in, so I picked up the gamepad and I used that as the TV remote to turn down the volume. And it made me get sort of nostalgic for the Wii U. I ended up playing Mario Kart DS for a little bit on the gamepad just because. And I was thinking about like the lack of Nintendo Directs and how good their Directs were back in like 2014 and 2015. So I actually went back and I watched both of those Directs, and they're just absolute bangers, Bryce. Absolute bangers. And like thinking back to the Wii U days, like this is where Nintendo is now, just with these sales figures, is just it's kind of unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
It sure is.
It definitely is.
So let's move on to some Pokemon Go news, Bryce. So this one's from Nintendo Enthusiast, and the title is "Players are calling for Pokemon Go loot box odds to be disclosed." And the article is written by Jamie Sharp, and it reads, "After the latest in-game event, players are now calling for Pokemon Go loot box odds to be disclosed. Currently, loot boxes in the game cover elements such as eggs, raids, incense, and even lures. The last event, Dragon Week, promised a higher chance of players earning various Dragon-type Pokemon, including a shiny Dino. However, a fan site, The Sylph Road, has tracked and recorded the egg hatching for the event within a sample group. The data shows something very different to what players were expecting. A major finding of the data is as follows. Dino's hatch rate was likely less than 1% for the first 3 days of the event, but after a change, researchers recorded a hatch rate above 3%. Following the event, Sylph Road's Reddit community is attempting to organize players in an effort to get Niantic to disclose Pokemon Go loot box odds. This effort may have been sparked by Dragon Week, but it's a part of a much larger source of frustration. Niantic has been notoriously close-lipped on odds behind Pokemon appearing through various means in Pokemon Go. Some players have felt the odds have been far lower than Niantic made them out to be at the time regarding certain special events. There's also been a sense for years that Niantic tweaks the odds of certain Pokemon appearing in the game. If the community cannot successfully push for Niantic to reveal Pokemon Go loot box odds, another option they have is to report the developer directly to Google or Apple for not disclosing loot box odds. Currently, there is a petition that players can sign. Most developers now disclose their loot box odds for games that have them. It seems shady that Niantic doesn't do the same for Pokemon Go. Maybe this petition will act that finally forces them to do so. So yeah, reading this, it's been hearing like a lot about loot boxes and disclosing odds and all that, and that was a big discussion in 2017 where every game seemed to be pumping out loot boxes because of I guess Overwatch's success with them. And like Pokemon Go, it sort of gets away with it because it's not a loot box. You're not like, oh, I'm buying this, you're getting a box that's breaking open, but you are spending money to sort of have items that enhance you in the game. And what you're hoping to get is hatch rare Pokemon from eggs, which is like obviously very much a kind of a loot box when you think about it. Pokemon randomly appearing, which are tweaked by Niantic to sort of make you play the game, whether you're looking for a rare one or whatever. And also just like item drops from gifts and just everything. Everything's got a chance about it. And a lot of the time for Pokemon Go, I've been sort of following other Australian Pokemon Go players in the content creation community, and a lot of them are sort of coming to the consensus that a lot of the time, because of our time zone, odds are usually broken for us because I guess we're kind of like the test market for a lot of these things, because an event drops and then we're like, we're doing it. We're looking for a shiny because it's got raised odds. We don't know what the odds are, but they're raised. And then like the 3 hours pass and the event ends and it gets reported that, oh, it doesn't seem like the shiny odds were raised for us because of a mistake by someone in the server room, or something didn't work, or whatever the reason is. So yeah, I think definitely the odds do need to be sort of raised, because other games, they show the odds for what you get, and Pokemon Go, while they're not necessarily loot boxes, it is pretty much the same thing. So what do you think about all this, Bryce?
I don't think. Okay. I think the odds need to be raised, because at the end of the day, it's Pokemon Go, and with the way that they structure their events, whether it be community days or spotlight hours or something like that, we've always got really strict time constraints.
Yeah.
And like something that I want to participate in but cannot every week because it's always at the wrong time is raid hour. And it's like at the absolute worst time. If I'm lucky, I might catch a raid or two. But because it's usually a combination of getting the kids to bed, like having dinner, getting the kids to bed, and then, you know, whatever, because my partner is working that night, I usually do all that stuff by myself, and then that gives her time to get ready for work and stuff like that, go to her night shift. So I miss out on it. But like that's the only time where I'm like, I know that I'm guaranteed legendary spawns, and I generally know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Whereas during community, you know, there is some nuance in like in the community hours or days where it's just like I have the chance to find a shiny, and you're like, cool, awesome. But I think when you start talking about like lures or incenses or eggs or gift boxes, I don't think they are pulling the same definition of a loot box as what any other game does it, like at all. Because the thing is like when you get down to brass tacks, the gifts are literally just, you're not getting anything exclusive from them. They're just typical items from the game. Eggs have a pool of things that you can get from them, yeah, but they're also freely obtainable. You don't have to pay for them. The incenses.
The only thing I got with the eggs is that a lot of people do pay for extra incubators. You get the one that you can just use one at a time, but a lot of people do pay real money for like the incubators. So like if someone's like, I want a Dino, and like they're assuming that there's like a 20% chance or like a good chance of getting one. They put money into the game, they buy incubators, and they're walking around hatching eggs. But then it turns out that it's only like a 1% chance. It's like, well, it would have been good to know before they put money into the game.
I guess so, but at the same time, that's 100% their choice, and they know what they're getting into when they purchase that.
But-
But they are purchasing the opportunities to hatch eggs.
But that's the thing, though.
Which
that
is
people want to
that-
know the exact rates of what their chance is.
Yeah, but okay, the difference between a loot box and something like that, right? What you're paying for in a loot box is a random chance to get skins or items. When you are talking about eggs in Pokemon Go, you are paying for the opportunity to hatch more eggs per hour. You're not paying for the content, you're paying for the opportunity to earn content. Right? So when you're talking about loot box odds here, you aren't paying for the egg. You're paying for the opportunity to hatch more eggs at one given time. If somebody wanted to, they could go on a jog, right? And if you've got somebody that's walking at a slow pace, you've got somebody that's going on a jog.
Yeah.
The person on the jog is going to hatch the eggs faster. So you could ultimately just go for a jog. You don't have to pay for the incubators.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, like, if all right, tell you what, I'm gonna go for a run and I'm gonna do an egg one at a time. I'm not gonna spend any money, and I want this Dino that's turns out to be 1%, but these people don't know that it's 1%, and like. You'll be pretty ripped by the end of that endeavor trying to hatch yourself a Dino. Like, I really want a Hydreigon. Oh, I really want one.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like you can't. There are ways to circumvent even bothering using extra incubators in the game. You could literally just go for a jog, and you will be hatching them faster.
I definitely think it's definitely not apples to apples. It is apples and oranges as far as loot boxes and hatching eggs in Pokemon Go. But yeah, I think it would be still a good thing just to say, hey, these are the odds, the exact odds of getting each Pokemon. So whether you want to just use your free incubator or you can buy them because you feel like that's a good enough percentage, have at it. So,
but I don't think they're at any legal obligation to do so. Like I have my own. I've always had my own gripes about Pokemon Go and how they've handled things and how the game sort of has come from its humble beginnings all the way up until now. There was like a huge period there where I festered on how much I hated Pokemon Go before they sort of fixed things up.
Yeah.
But this is not one of those things because at the end of the day, there is a way to circumvent the issue. And whether you want to take that opportunity to circumvent the issue is entirely up to you. The hatching through incubators, it's like if you want to pay for the incubators, you can go right ahead. But they also hand out a shit ton of free of them, so save them up and wait a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
You get them from missions all the time. Like you get them from leveling up. If it really is your concern, then hold on to them and wait. You could play the entire game free to play if you literally just do the main objective of the game, which is walking. You don't have to pay a single cent. The fact that you pay a single cent is entirely up to you. You get the premium currency for free for doing the gyms. Sure, it's capped per day, but you do get the premium currency, so you can actually buy those incubators with the premium currency. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have any liability to actually disclose it, like at all. It's basically just like, if you want to buy it, you can buy it. That's fine. But because it is not an absolute requirement to buy these things in order to get them, they are absolutely no legal obligation to do so. I would like them to disclose the odds to some degree as well, because I've played a lot of games with loot boxes and I've always been like, God damn it, I just want this one fucking thing. And like Overwatch was a great example of that because they would play a shit ton of Overwatch so I could get loot boxes without having to pay for them. But that's the thing as well. It's like I played a shit ton of Overwatch to get those loot boxes so I didn't have to pay for them. You could do the same thing with Pokemon Go. But in the differences between the loot boxes and the incubators, literally it's down to you can run faster and pull off 3 incubators worth of hatching eggs if you just move your ass a little faster.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I feel like if this does get taken to Google or Apple or the courts or whatever, I feel like I don't think they'll have I think they'll be able to get away with it because you're not buying the box with the stuff in it. You're buying the item that will help you use the egg. it's kind of weird, but I think with Niantic, they have been listening to the community a lot, and even to the point where we can vote on Pokemon community days now, whether it's through a Twitter poll and that. So they are listening to the community. So I don't think it's too much of an ask to be like, hey, what are the rates of getting each Pokemon? I think it would be good, just transparency. But I don't think it's necessarily a needed thing through like legal means.
No, I don't think you need to go to Apple and Google and be like, this is misleading, because it's not misleading. Like there is a very big gap in the difference of misleading when it comes to loot boxes and egg incubators. The difference between loot boxes and egg incubators is loot boxes offer you the promise of something that is, right in your face. Oh my God. But the incubators are more like, oh my God, now I have more opportunities to do things. Right? But again, can be circumvented if you just move your ass a bit faster on your walk.
Yeah.
There's really no discrepancy. Like I don't feel for this like at all.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I guess just keeping on Pokemon Go. So we did get news that we get to vote on a couple of Pokemon species for Community Day this month. And what were the options? They were Porygon, Charmander, Caterpie, and I forgot the last one off the top of my head. But do you know what you'll be voting for, Bryce? I'm just curious to see what your answer is going to be.
I'll be honest, probably Porygon.
Oh, my boy. Thank you.
Well, look, if there's anything that's rare as shit out of that list that's really annoying to obtain, it's Porygon.
Yeah. And Porygon...
I've not come across a single one.
Haven't you? I've got a Porygon Z as my partner at the moment.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. I haven't come across a single one. And, Charmander, everybody's got one in droves by now. I think I've got like 7 Charizards at this point because they just throw them out at events like all the time.
Yeah.
They're just like, I've got like, I remember I was so excited like getting my Charizard. I'm like, oh my God, I've finally got enough candy to get a Charizard. And I got that. Now I've got like 7 of them because the last couple events have been like, what was it? The last event, the
Go Fest.
The Fest.
Yeah.
Go Fest. It was like I caught 7 Charizards, like 13 Blastoises, and like 8 or 9 Venusaurs. And I'm like, well, that feels worthless now. So
yeah, it felt good.
I'm not really interested. Just give me the Porygon, to be honest.
Yeah, because Porygon's, it's the only Pokemon that's out of those 4 that aren't shiny in the game already. And Porygon's got a really awesome shiny. It's blue and white. And it's personally one of my favorite shinies. So it's one of my favorite Pokemon. So if Porygon doesn't make it, and like Caterpie or Charmander or whatever get in, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be generally angry.
Do they have the poll up yet? I don't even know.
I don't think so.
I will look that up while you're talking real quick.
Yeah. So while we move, I'll move on to some more Pokemon mobile news, Bryce. So this is from The Gamer, and this is about Pokemon Masters. And the title is Pokemon Masters evolves into Pokemon Masters EX for its 1-year anniversary. Bryce, have you seen any of this? This only dropped like an hour ago. They had like a sort of Pokemon Masters Direct as such, where they sort of updated us with information for the game. And personally, for me, I haven't played Pokemon Masters in a very long time. It sort of lost me, but from what I've been hearing from the Pokemon community, it has evolved in quite an interesting way. So I'm going to read the article from thegamer.com. And it reads, what? Pokemon-focused mobile game Pokemon Masters is evolving. To mark its upcoming 1-year anniversary, Pokemon Masters is transforming into Pokemon Masters EX. The change comes complete with a new logo and special events to signify how the game has grown since launch. Players will see updates take effect from the end of August through to the beginning of September. Pokemon Masters first launched on August 28th, 2019. The internal trailers captured fan interest by putting focus on famous Pokemon trainers from the game's history. And that got my interest until the game came out. Pokemon still do the battling in 3 vs 3 real-time format, but trainers get the spotlight when it comes to story. The writers take a deep dive and explore the lore of beloved characters and their relationships. Fans immediately took to this new perspective on Pokemon, but when met with server issues and questionable gacha mechanics. In response to complaints, the developers became more active in communicating with players and introducing desired content. Now, a year later, the game is in a much better place. Perhaps one of the best additions to Masters is Signet Suit characters. These rare pulls put popular trainers in cool new outfits and pair them with powerful Pokemon. A new Signet Suit is always cause for celebration and real money spending. The anniversary will play into this by featuring Signet Suit Cynthia and Komao. And yeah, I don't know if you've seen the Sigma Suit Komao. It's pretty interesting. Cynthia has like basically the scales from Komao, and
I'll have a look.
it is kind of weird because like it sort of clashes with like my Pokemon fandom because I'm like that's a Gen 4 champion with a Gen 6 Pokemon. I don't know how I feel about that. Also, Gen 7 Pokemon even. It's like, oh. But it is pretty cool nevertheless. I really like the character designs and everything they're doing with Pokemon Masters, if anything else. So the article continues. Cynthia is one of the most favorited trainers of all time thanks to her cool demeanor and challenging Pokemon team. She has plenty of fans who would drop lots of money to summon her, making her the perfect anniversary event prize. Komao is also a pleasant surprise as it's not on Cynthia's main team, giving this version of Cynthia a certain rarity beyond just a typical Signet Suit pair. Joining Cynthia will be Cyrus and Palkia. The cold calculating leader of Team Galactic will feature in a story event that includes Signet Suit Cynthia. Cyrus and Palkia will automatically join the player's team after the story event is completed. Where Signet Suit Cynthia, that's a few words to say in a row, is up to...
Signet Suit Cynthia, Signet Suit Cynthia, Signet Suit Cynthia, Signet Suit...
It's a bit like that. He's up to Luck of Draw, which is, great. Got gacha mechanics right there. To top it off, Lance and Dragonite will return to the Spotlight Hour starting August 19th. So it doesn't say in here, but they're also introducing I forgot what, it doesn't actually say it in this article, which is a bit disappointing. But in the presentation they gave us from DNA, they did show us sort of like a new Pokemon League battle system where you actually go through the Elite Four and verse the champion. And you've got to do it with, pretty much like you do in the games with the sync pairs. And when like a sync pair gets knocked out, you can't use it again until you actually complete the whole, all of the Elite Four members in a row. And it's starting off with the Kanto Elite Four members, and at the end you verse Blue, who is the champion. And they said they're going to be introducing more Pokemon Leagues as time goes on. So we'll get access to Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, etc., etc. So what Pokemon Masters is doing is like really cool, and like they introduced egg hatching and shinies and all of that sort of the last 2 months as well, which I know a lot of people in the Pokemon community have been really enjoying. Hasn't really made me want to go back and play it, but I feel like I just wish maybe I will go back and play it just out of interest, because it's the type of game where I actually want it to be good and catch me. Like I want it to catch me, because like the story content seems like it is going to be interesting, because I am actually quite interested in Pokemon lore, and even like the proper main series that Game Freak makes don't necessarily properly capture on the lore as much as they should. So
no,
yeah.
What
do you think about this update, Bryce? You reckon you'll go and check it out?
I'm currently updating it right now just to see whether Signet Suit Cynthia's out, because and I'd like to go back to the start of the article where it's like, it gets people wanting them and definitely gets their money. I think like up to this point, I have most of the Signet Suit characters and I haven't spent a dime.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, but that has been more down to luck than anything else.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could do just one free roll and get one, but do another free roll, get one. But you also might be rolling forever and never get one. So
that's right. Yeah. That is the unfortunate cause of the gacha. But like
the cause of the gacha.
At the same time, oh well, it is, yeah. But I guess I've just been lucky. So it's sort of just like, I'll log in, I'll do the role. I'm like, sweet, I got Signet Suit whoever, and then I'll move on. Or usually the other thing is just like getting a champion or something. Like I remember, what was it? They released Red and someone else at the same time. I can't remember who it was. Signet Suit Red and Signet Suit Elisa.
Don't know.
So the electric type gym leader from Gen 5?
It
And,
very well could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, I got both of them in the same role.
Wow. Same role. Wow.
Yep. I'm like, cool.
How many
Thanks.
do you get in one roll? 2 or 3 or?
No. 1 or 10. So
Right.
yeah, it's 300 for 1, I believe, and 3,000 for 10. So times 10. So I pulled 1 10 times roll, I think, and got it. And I was like, cool, there's both of them. Sweet. Don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm good. All right. And then I leveled them up with some training manuals or whatever and moved on.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if everyone's that lucky, everyone's probably going to love the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But whether that'll actually happen or not, like, I'll roll for Cynthia, see if I get Cynthia. If I don't get Cynthia, tough shit. I don't really care.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I might update it and give it a go once the anniversary update comes out on the 28th. See what it's all about. See if I can enjoy some story content without actually having to pay too much. If I really enjoy it, I don't mind paying money, but they got to earn my trust first. They got to ease me into enjoying it. Like Pokemon Go did. I've actually ended up spending a decent amount of money on Pokemon Go this year, just with all the changes they made. I think they made a lot of great changes, so I'm enjoying the game. So I'm like, you know what, $30 there and $10 there. I actually don't mind it if it's a quality product. So that's what Pokemon Masters has to do for me to enjoy it.
And I mean, I think it's good. And as somebody that smashed it out within like the first 5 hours, like the initial content and stuff like that, because usually when I go into a gacha game, and what most people should do when they go into a gacha game is they should re-roll till they get a decent couple unit pairs.
Yeah.
So that, you know, down the line you aren't like, I've just got absolute trash, I've got nothing to work with, because then if you get to that point, you're going to struggle and you're not going to be able to get into the game, and it's just going to be a shitty experience. But I managed to get the pairs that I needed, and like I downloaded and played it at the time when nobody had really determined a tier list or anything yet, but I happened to get the things that ended up being tier list toppers. So it was sort of just like I smashed the game out in 5 hours, and then it was like, to be continued on the story. I'm like, really?
Sounded like you needed to buy a lotto ticket instead of playing Pokemon Masters by the sound of it, with your luck there.
I might as well have.
Yeah.
Like, it was good because the character interactions and stuff like that, they're really neat and fun. But unfortunately, it did have that constraint back then where it's just like, this game released with like fuck all content, like absolute zilch. They thought like the story thing was going to last for ages, like for at least, you know, a couple weeks. It lasted me 5 hours to get through it. There was, beyond that, the only thing I could do was level trainers up and stuff like that. And because it's a gacha game that really, really centralizes on you having the better units more than anything else, you know, the only point past that is to spend money and get units that you couldn't use. Now that there's more content in the game, they actually have like a proper system up for stuff and all that. I'm sure that it is better, but the only thing I actually do open it for right now at all is to roll on things that are limited time.
Yep.
And they usually give me a good hefty amount of like free bonuses up until that point where I'm like, well, I don't have to spend a penny. So that's all I do with it. And I think that's because it was the sour taste in my mouth from them being like, you know, here's all we've got.
This is our best. Please enjoy.
Yeah, this is all we have. And then I'm like, that does not make me hopeful for this game. I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
See you later.
Oh, well, anyone that's keen to give it a go again, you know, like myself, like who didn't enjoy it the first time, maybe that would be the update for you. So, Bryce, let's move into some pretty sad news. And, well, it's not sad, but it's just kind of like, oh dear, news. So, start off with Retro Studios posted from their Twitter account, which hasn't been posted on for a very long time. And they say, quote, we are looking for a lead producer to join us on our journey to develop Metroid Prime 4. Hashtag game jobs, hashtag game dev, hashtag game dev jobs. And there's a link to careers at nintendo.com. It's like, they're looking for a lead producer. Holy shit. This game is... We knew that it was early in development. We knew that it was going to be a while off yet. But they're looking for a lead producer, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, so I think they literally got the permission to make this game. They're like, all right, let's start getting a team together, and that team is still not fully together yet. And just for I've had no experience with game dev or anything, but a lead producer is pretty much the person that organize everything, make sure everyone's on track, making sure they're getting their jobs done, sort of communicating within, whether it's between the artists and the programmers and the coders and all that, just getting it all together so it kind of keeps the team together. And they're looking for one. They don't have that person. So interesting stuff. So I'll read the article just from Nintendo Life discussing this, and it's written by Liam Doolan. And the article reads, since Nintendo announced it would restart development of Metroid Prime 4, Retro Studios has been recruiting talent non-stop. In saying this, there are still certainly 10 positions advertised on the Nintendo careers page for the company. One of these is for a lead producer to oversee the entire project and make sure deadlines are met. Retro obviously wants to fill the position as soon as possible, as it's now put out its second major tweet of the year since a Happy New Year post on the 1st of January. According to the creators page, the job was originally posted on the 10th of May 2020, but has only been mentioned on Retro Studios' social account now. A number of other positions also appear to have been listed recently in June and July. After the restart and all of the disruptions this year due to a global pandemic, having an individual who would be responsible for maintaining project timelines, providing studio-wide risk reports, and who is responsible for studio-wide communication and project status sounds like a great idea. Bit of sarcasm in that writing there, I assume. At the very... You want to be paid pretty well by Retro and Nintendo. At very least, it's a reminder that the game is still probably a while away. Wow. So, Retro Studios still a while away. There was a few years ago when we were expecting an announcement from Retro when the rumors for Star Fox Grand Prix were coming out, that they were working on a racing game and that it was potentially Star Fox themed in that series. And it seems like either that went wrong or it was scrapped for the team to move on to Metroid Prime or whatever the reason. It's been a long time since Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on Wii U in 2014 or 15. I think it was 15. Might have been early 2014. Can't quite remember. But it's been a long time since that game. So there's obviously been something that's been scrapped in the meantime. Otherwise, I think would be on the sort of path to having that announced and coming out, then moving on to Metroid. So it seems like whatever that was has been scrapped. So with this news, Bryce, it made me think, what is coming to Switch within the next, say, 18 months? We don't know a lot about what's coming the rest of this year. We know Pikmin 3 Deluxe is coming, which is a Wii U port from 2013, so it's a pretty old game at this point. And we really don't know much. We sort of assume Mario ports are coming at the end of this year, and that's going to be the main package Nintendo's going to put out. Probably do some Switch console special editions and that to really push it, maybe to fight off or get attention from Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. But going into next year, we know nothing. Breath of the Wild's probably a big contender next year, but apart from that, we really don't know. So let's slide off into Reggie's Rec Room and let's go through Nintendo's studios and try and figure out what's going on.
Hi, Nintendo fans. Reggie here.
It's Reggie. Hello, Reggie.
Thank you for your never-ending support.
Our bro.
For giving me
Is
a
that man?
mushroom kingdom full of incredible memories that I will never forget. Ever.
Oh, man, it's good to be back in the house with Reggie. I've missed Reggie. He's a good lad.
You've missed him, haven't you?
I have. I mean, he's
Only takes a week.
He's so quiet, but just his presence in this house just really makes it a special place, I reckon.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely.
I got to be honest with you. You and Peachy last week, you were a bit rude to him. You kind of just treated
he
him.
loves it.
You treated him like your butler. You just said, all he does is pour drinks. Like, I don't know if He lives here. I don't know. He doesn't work here. He lives here, Bryce. You don't. He's not like our little slave or anything like that.
Look, mate, he loves a little joke, right?
Does he?
Yeah, he does. Look at that look on his face.
Yeah, I know. It's very stern. I'm scared.
That dead blank stare. Perfect. You know?
I really hope people that are listening to this in audio, I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to see him in person in the corner. You know, I don't focus him on the camera, so don't bother.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Not gonna happen.
So, just going through sort of Nintendo Studios and who might be putting out a game within the next 18 months. It is sort of complicated because, as we know with Nintendo, they're so up in the air with like how they put their teams together. If we're talking about Sony or Microsoft, it's very obvious about who makes what over there, especially with Sony with their marketing being so clear. Like PlayStation Studios, they are studios that are owned by PlayStation, and we know like Naughty Dog, Insomniac, etc. And we know like exactly, you know, what studio is responsible for what game. But Nintendo, outside of like a few second parties and just partners, we really don't know just who they are, what they're working on, especially since like in 2018 when they sort of moved around some of their teams. Because before we knew that like EPD Group 1, for example, was responsible for Mario, and EPD Group 2 was always like a Zelda team and all of that, but that sort of moved around lately. So we'll start off with some of the affiliates or like second party developers.
Before you do,
yes,
one thing. I know we said this wasn't going to be a visual show, right?
Oh, here we go. You're already breaking the rule. You're making Jamie.
One rule.
You're making Jamie cry in the car. He's like, "Fuck, I'm not going to YouTube, Bryce, to see
hang
your
on a
dumb
second.
shit."
You're going to be able to say something, all right?
Okay. Fuck you. Okay, so Bryce is showing me his phone. So don't worry about pulling over the car and going on YouTube.com. Bryce updated Pokemon Masters. He made a roll, and he got Sigma Suit Cynthia with Coma O.
I also got Lyra and Ethan as well, which were both 5 stars. Like, yeah,
Nice. All right, Bryce, you're buying a lottery ticket, mate. I don't know. Go to wherever your local 24-hour lottery ticket place is and go buy one, please.
I just had to prove I was lucky, okay? So I updated during that time after we were talking about it, and I'm like, all right, I'll do my roll because I know that I'll more than likely have enough free gifts in my box to roll. And what happened? I got Sigma Suit Cynthia. It worked. I tell you, I'm just a lucky man.
You are a lucky man. Jesus.
Beautiful.
So
Anyway.
all right, so we'll start off with a developer that I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what their next game is, and that's Next Level Games. And recently they released Luigi's Mansion 3, and that they also made Luigi's Mansion 2 on 3DS. But Bryce, they're makers of a series that we are very much hoping is going to get revived, and that's Mario Strikers.
Oh, yes.
So I guess with the success of Luigi's Mansion 3 on Switch, do you think we'll see them revisit Mario Strikers? Do you reckon that's a thing we could see them make, or are they going to keep making Luigi's Mansion now?
I think, like, I hate to say it, but I think Mario sports games are in the bin.
Yeah, at least
like,
the
standalone ones.
Yeah, well, I don't think like Camelot, who make golf and tennis, they'll keep rotating through each one. I feel like that's one we could see from Camelot Games, who basically work with Nintendo to make the sports titles. So I think we could see a golf probably next year. I think a Mario Golf isn't out of the question. Yeah,
but like those are the only 2 that they've ever consistently sort of kept up with and kept going. Like, I'm talking about, we never really saw Hoops 3-on-3 again after Strikers. We've never really heard anything about it since then. You got, you know, God, if you really want to go into other things, you got like Dance Mix. That never went back to anything. Friggin', you know. I think they're trying to like collectively get all these things that probably seem a little less complicated into sports mix games, but then they also come out as much more bland games. I don't know whether that's because of the success of Wii Sports, but they're definitely not the same thing. And it is kind of disappointing that we never really got a Hoops 3-on-3 ever again. And Strikers has been stupid stagnant ever since. But yet I feel like the series that are getting stagnant are golf and tennis, and those games like Hoops 3-on-3 and Strikers are not getting enough attention. Especially since I feel like Strikers and Hoops are really high energy, right? In comparison to golf, which is more of a lax type thing, and then you've got tennis, which should be high energy, but at the same time gets very bland very quickly.
Yeah.
And I just to me it just feels like that. As much as we want them to come back, I don't think it's going to happen. Mainly because whether it's due to sales or general public interest or whatever it may be, they just don't seem to get the same amount of clout as the other two seem to. And I don't know how, because to be completely honest with you, Mario Tennis Aces was boring.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It seems like one of those games that, sort of came and went. And I was thinking about the other day when I was thinking about if I had physical games, probably the one Nintendo game I probably would trade in would be Mario Tennis Aces. It's just one of those.
I did trade it in.
Yeah. That would be the one. Like, I never trade in Nintendo games, but I reckon that one would be like, you know what, I can make a bit of money back on this.
Yeah. I traded it in and gave up on it. I was like, nah, it's not keeping my interest at all. And I was hyped for it. I was keen. So something.
So we've got a developer here called Vanpol, and Vanpol is a Japanese developer of video games, music software, computer software, and toys. And the games they made, or at least co-developed, were We Play Motion, Dylan's Rolling Western, The Last Rancher. They co-developed Chibi Robo Zip Lash on Nintendo 3DS with Skip Limited, Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers on Nintendo 3DS, which actually came out only 2 years ago, 2018, and the most recent Super Kirby Clash on Nintendo Switch, which they co-developed with HAL Laboratories. So while that's not like a prominent developer, and obviously they're not like a maker of some of our favorite games, they could be someone who release a game coming up over the next year or so, whether it's just like smaller things that pop up on the eShop for like free to play or whatever, but probably won't necessarily be something we'll be all that interested in. There's Intelligent Systems. With Fire Emblem, we know that they're working more with external teams to make Fire Emblem now. They just released Paper Mario, and they also do the WarioWare series and Pushmo series. So we could see maybe Pushmo being revived from the 3DS onto the Switch.
Just give me WarioWare.
My personal big one is I think out of all Nintendo franchises, WarioWare is in the top 5, which I want to see come to Switch. It's just perfect for the system.
I would love WarioWare anywhere. Like, I remember not thinking much.
Let's bring another one out on Wii.
I remember not thinking much about it when I'd heard of it, like back in GameCube era sort of thing. Like, micro games, I don't really get it. But then when Touch came into our lives, I was like, holy shit. This is so much fun. This is so much fun. And then Smooth Moves come along, like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And then after that, it went really dead for a while until Gold came out. And Gold was awesome.
It was, yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And I would really love another home console WarioWare in the same vein as Smooth Moves, because God, that game was good. Loved it so much.
Yeah, I definitely want to see a Switch version. It was great on 3DS, but it hit the point when the 3DS was already like sort of like, all right, we've put you to the side already. So yeah. This is an interesting one. Like a lot of these sort of secondary, I guess, partners that Nintendo works with, I haven't actually heard of a lot. So Indies Zero. So just from Wikipedia, Indie Zero Corporation is a video game company headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. It was founded in April 21st, 1997, and has developed for other video game companies, including Nintendo, Sega, and Square Enix. And just pulling from the games they've made, so for Square Enix, they made Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy, Ultimate NES Remix, and NES Remix 2, which were great games for the Wii U. Sort of like, I guess they sort of like made NES games as like WarioWare mini games almost, and it was a really great use of the touchscreen. And most recently, they co-developed Sushi Striker Way of the Sushido with Nintendo EPD. So that Sushi Striker came out a few years ago now, so we could see something from that team if Nintendo is still working with them on a second party basis. And another big one also is Grezzo. And most recently, they did the Link's Awakening remake on Switch last year. So it'd be interesting to see what they come with. It won't be next year. We won't see anything from Grezzo, but most likely another Zelda project from them, maybe in 2022 or something.
That's what I brought up last week, actually, about when the patents were being renewed and Ocarina of Time was amongst them, like Ocarina of Time 3D. Like I don't hold a lot of like hope, to be completely honest with you, because it's like obviously patents get renewed all the time, and trademarks get renewed all the time, so that you can never really hold much of a candlelight to them. However, those, I guess remakes is the best way to put them, of those games, being Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Those games are beautiful, and the fact that they're restricted to just the 3DS is kind of irritating, and I would love to play those games in like a bit more of a fuller glory. So I'm hoping in some sort of aspect they do find their way over in some sort of port, whether it be the Hero of Time collection or something, and it's just OOT 3D and Majora's Mask 3D upscaled, made better, all that stuff, because it's a real waste of potential otherwise, because, you know, otherwise they're just going to go ahead and fall back on, here is Ocarina of Time on the 64, which everybody will love for sure, but OOT 3D and Majora's Mask 3D would really benefit from a port more than the original would. Yeah,
absolutely. And it makes me wonder too, like Grezzo, they have a pretty big repertoire of 3DS games with Nintendo. So they got Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and they actually did the Four Swords Anniversary Edition for the 3DS as well as an original game, Ever Oasis, which would be pretty cool on Switch, which was sort of like a town building / RPG. It was pretty interesting, but it did come out at the time when 3DS was sort of losing its luster, and even I sort of went, it looked cool, but at the same time I was into other systems, including the Switch. So yeah, it would be cool to see some of those games come over. And whether, I don't know how many teams Grezzo has within. I don't know how big they are. I'll click on them to see if I can see how big they are. The number of employees is 68, so they're a pretty small team. So I wouldn't bet on them having too many teams within them to just do basic porting as well. But you never know. You might see some of those games come over.
Which would be nice.
Yeah. So next one is a Feel Good, and a Good Feel, sorry.
I mean, same thing.
Yeah,
same
the most recent game is Yoshi's Crafted World, and they've done WarioWare Shake It, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and Yoshi's Woolly World on Wii U. So we could see something from these guys. It has been, when was Yoshi's Crafted World? It was early 2019, wasn't it? So it's only been a bit over a year, I guess. So it hasn't been that long. So the number of employees there is 131. So they're a bit bigger, but they're not like a massive team either.
Did you say Wario Land Shake It in that list?
Yeah, I did, for the Wii.
I would like to see that game ported over. Like, just because that's a pretty game for a Wario game.
Yeah, I mean, you put that in HD and it's already sort of done most of the work. I know it's a fair bit to go and like touch up old artwork for HD. I know that's a big ask, but even I think it's on the Wii U eShop as well. I know not everyone listening to this has a Wii U and wants to go back to that thing, but it's definitely a game that's worth it, I feel. And it's a game I want to get through either good means or bad means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One we all know, Game Freak, who make the mainline Pokemon games. Last year they released Pokemon Sword and Shield as well as Little Town Hero. So both their main Pokemon team is working on Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, as well as what the Pokemon game next year is going to be, most likely, whether it's, don't know what it's going to be. I assume it's going to be another set of remakes for the Generation 4 of 4 games, but you never know. But I reckon we'll get a game next year around holiday time. But yeah, apart from like their second team, which is, I think their Gear Initiative, where they sort of put together a bit of a smaller team and people pitch ideas, and the ones that win go through and get made into full games. And Little Town Hero was a part of that program. So that came out last year. So I don't expect anything smaller like that to be coming out anytime soon either. But yeah,
No.
Game Freak's a bit more of an obvious one. As well as Creatures. So Creatures is a part of the Pokemon company who work alongside and make sort of other more spin-off Pokemon games. So they make the Pokemon Ranger series, they made Poké Park, Pikachu's Adventure, and they made Detective Pikachu on 3DS as well. So they're most likely the ones working on the Detective Pikachu sequel that's coming to Switch, and we never heard of apart from, I don't think it was even the logo when, you know, the presentation when Pokemon Sleep was announced. That's probably the most prominent one people remember. So they're most likely working on Detective Pikachu too, and don't know, that could very well be next year, or it could be a long ways off. I'm not quite sure. Depends on how COVID sort of has affected Creatures. And
Yeah, that's
like
right.
Creatures also, they'll be doing a fair bit of work on, you know, Pokemon trading cards and Pokemon game coming out next year, and the DLC, like they've got a big part in that. But just going to their page, how many employees? So they've got 144 employees. So also not like a massive team, but that's sort of like what a lot of these teams are. They're just more independent ones that Nintendo sort of partners with through either just like affiliate partnerships, or they are second parties, and like Pokemon own like a part of the Pokemon IP.
Yeah.
So there's Umbrella, and they also work on a lot of Pokemon stuff as well. So they've got Pokemon, they make Pokemon Rumble, Hey You Pikachu, My Pokemon Ranch, Pokemon Dash, and Pokemon Channel. So not the best Pokemon spin-off games in there, but also could be another contender for some Pokemon games next year. We did talk about Camelot games. So they make the Pokemon, or not the Pokemon, they make the Mario sports games, including Mario Sports Superstars, which was, I can't remember if it's the 3DS one or Wii one, I can't quite remember, but they very well could have Mario Golf or Mario Sports as the next game. And was it a few weeks ago when the Mario Sports trademark came up, or was leaked or something? Can't quite remember. I think it was just the trademark.
I think it was about a month ago.
Yeah. So
I think
Camelot's next game could very well be a Mario Sports mix type situation.
It's not what I want.
Yeah. Another one people would really want for Camelot is the Golden Sun series to return. A very prominent game on the Game Boy Advance, and got a sequel on the DS, which wasn't quite as well received, but still good that it actually got a sequel. It was pretty exciting at the time.
I don't think Golden Sun will ever come back. It's just a meme at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're right and done with it. I don't think they have any plans to revisit it whatsoever, unless they're maybe doing like a console remake or something that's in like 3D or whatever. I don't. For them to do that at this point and make like a Golden Sun sequel, there'd be nobody interested. Yeah. So they would probably have to reboot the whole thing.
I'm just looking here because obviously Nintendo published it on the Game Boy Advance, but I'm not sure of Nintendo's actual like what their ownership, or if they own it or what. I assume they do own it. I always assumed it was a Nintendo property, but it very well might not be. But not too sure.
Yeah.
They at least have.
Why we've probably never heard anything about it since then.
Yeah, very well. Because like Camelot, they might actually own some of the Golden Sun IP. Hence why Nintendo not too worried about making another one, because they won't get as much profit if they just do a Mario RPG or Zelda or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's what happens with a lot of these companies, where it's like, we could make 70% if we do Golden Sun, but we could also make 100% if we do one of our IPs.
Yeah.
So another one, Sora Limited, obviously, which did Kid Icarus Uprising and the Super Smash Bros. Games from Wii U, 3DS, and Ultimate with Bandai Namco Studios. Yeah, I mean, from Sora, what I would love after Super Smash Bros. Would be a return to Kid Icarus. Really, really awesome game. One of my favorites, to be honest, on the 3DS and probably in general. Like, I absolutely love that game. So I would love to see maybe a sequel to that, but it'd be interesting to see what Sakurai does after Smash Bros. Whether he just never leaves Smash Bros. Because the DLC makes Nintendo a lot of money, or what they'll get up to. What do you think he could do after Smash DLC, Bryce?
I just want him to do more Kid Icarus.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Like,
The thing is like, I sunk a lot of time into that game. I really like that game. And I know it's got horrendous controls and all that stuff, and that's kind of lame, sure. But for what it had in horrendous controls, it also had like some pretty phenomenal gameplay for what it was worth. It had a lot of uniqueness to it. There was always dialogue floating about the place. All these characters that were in the Kid Icarus universe all of a sudden had a lot of personality. Everybody knows who Veridi is now, for example. Like before, it was like, here is Pit, here is Palutena. You do your thing, go kill Medusa. But now it's like everybody knows who Veridi is, and there are people like us who are like, get Hades and Smash.
Yeah, that's what I voted for. I voted for Hades.
Because he was a fucking cool character.
He was, yeah.
Hopefully, he was really good.
I hope my ballot came across Sakurai's desk. He's like, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate Hades too.
he was so good, and like, just getting that whole game, like the hype leading up to that game was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, because at the time, Pit came out in Smash. Like everybody had just assumed that we'd completely forgotten about Kid Icarus, never going to happen ever again, and then that game happened.
Yeah,
and despite the backlash on its horrendous controls and all that crap and whatever it may be, it had such an awesome time from start to finish. Like, I don't think I ever got bored.
The character interactions really made that game. Just as you're going through it, just a lot of people like, oh, shut up. I'm sick of them talking. But I absolutely loved them just being able to just talking back and forth between Pit, the bad guy, like some allies you have in whatever it is in that particular level. Like, there's always back and forth, and it's always funny or interesting or I just absolutely love it. Like, it's a game that you definitely need the audio for, because it's kind of like the sort of tracks in the background are kind of like a podcast in some ways. Like, they're always talking, and it's pretty cool.
It was just one of the best experiences on the 3DS in general.
Yeah.
And like, even if like, they managed to sort of move it over, port it, whatever, but upscale it, sort of remake it, I would probably prefer, but just do something like that and then put that out there and then gauge that on the Switch audience just to see where it goes. Because even the multiplayer was extremely diverse. Like,
yeah, so that you could, with proper controls and like getting like proper fleshed out, that multiplayer could be awesome.
Yeah, because like I played that multiplayer for a bit too, because I was like, damn, this is really cool, and I like the intuitive system they got going on there, because you would create your own arms sort of thing, and you could take weapons that you've earned and you could mash them together, and I like the combinations that you could come up with that just made some really cool shit. Was just like, I remember I had like a really light pair of brawler gloves that could attack like 5 times in 1 second or something, and I managed to get that through like heaps of like consecutive merges until I got like right down to brass tacks and made like a really, really fast gloves weapon, and it was just awesome. Like I liked the intuitive bits of that, and like how that would sort of mesh with, you can create your own weapon and you can get really good with it and sort of display your skill, not just as like a general player, but also as somebody who gets really into the not very complicated but very customizable crafting system for weapons. Like, it was really, really good. Like, I really don't understand how they couldn't capitalize off it and make a sequel. as far as I have. Whether it's just been Sakurai who's been so smashed with Smash work,
Well,
or
that's definitely what happened, because he moved on to. Remember at 2011, like, all right, Smash Bros is coming to Wii U and 3DS, and I think Sakurai's like, all right. And then like a few months after, he had slideshows which he showed the board at Nintendo, and we actually got access to them a few years later and got to see it all and how all the ideas came together. So he has been busy since with Smash, and we know that the Smash DLC is going to be coming out until the end of 2021. So no Kid Icarus from Sora Limited anytime soon.
I really hope he gets the opportunity to go and just run with it and make a new Kid Icarus game. Not just for the sake of, like, you know, him doing something different, but for the sake of the character of Pit and that entire universe, because it is a terrible waste to sort of throw that. I really did not give a shit about Pit before that game. Like, the most Pit was to me was he was your main in Smash Brawl.
Yeah. Yeah,
Other than that,
I was stoked that my character actually got fleshed out in the game as well. So that was another layer on why I love that game so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, because from that year, was it 2012, another one of my favorite games on the PlayStation Vita came out, which was Gravity Rush, and Gravity Rush got a sequel, and it was even less likely to get a sequel. So Nintendo, pull your thumb out your bum and make a sequel to Kid Icarus Uprising, for goodness sakes.
Just let Sakurai do it, please.
Yeah,
like, you know it's the right decision.
Let Sakurai do it. He's already producer on bloody Smash DLC and all that.
Do you happen to know what Uprising actually managed in sales?
I don't.
I'll look it up.
You look it up. So I'm going to move on to HAL Laboratory, and a lot of Nintendo fans know HAL Laboratory pretty well. Makers of Kirby, and that's actually where Sakurai came from. He's the creator of Kirby, and Kirby is a series that HAL Laboratories manage. But looking at their output on Nintendo Switch, it's been a bit whatever, actually. It's just been a couple of Kirby games and Box Boy plus Box Girl. So in 2018, the main Kirby game came out, which was Kirby Star Allies, which was that sort of co-op Kirby game, which was probably one of the first party Nintendo games on Switch where I'm like, you know what, don't need that. $80, not really that necessary. But Box Boy and Box Girl coming out in 2019. That was a really quite a cool little co-op puzzle game as well, and it was a series that was pretty well loved on 3DS. So whether they have like other little games that are going to come out like that, not quite sure. But it'll be good to see some more eShop centric games coming out, because on 3DS they put out a fair bit of content. They did a Face Raiders, which was the face game where you took a picture of your face and it went onto these things and like it animated your face and you like shot balls at them to get points, which was a part of the actual built-in software on the 3DS. They did Kirby Triple Deluxe, Kirby Fighters Deluxe, DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe, which I actually don't know what Drum Dash Deluxe is. Box Boy. They did Picross 3D, Box Boy, Kirby Planet Robot Bot. Bye Bye Box Boy. So they did a bunch of stuff on 3DS as well. So we probably will see something from HAL Laboratory coming up soon, maybe even early 2022, unless they got some stuff that works. So there's some other second party developers going on, but we'll go up to some more of their partners. So obviously Retro Studios is their only American owned studio, and as we talked, Metroid Prime is not coming anytime soon. ND Cube, which is a Nintendo subsidiary and a Japanese video game developer based in Japan with offices in Tokyo. They were actually the makers of F-Zero Maximum Velocity and Tube Slider, which I'm not sure what Tube Slider is, but they're mainly known for Wii Party and then taking over the Mario Party series after Hudson Soft was absorbed into Konami. So they sort of took over the Mario Party series with Mario Party 8, I believe. And that's when Mario Party became pretty bad.
Yeah.
When these guys took over. But with their recent offerings with Super Mario Party on Switch, I think it sort of turned stuff around. It's a great game. I think it was just lacking content. And a lot of people that really love that game are just kind of like, when's the DLC coming out? Because every other game on Switch was getting a nice amount of DLC. But it's obvious why that didn't happen, because they also developed 51 worldwide games, which came out earlier this year, 2 years after. So it was about a 2-year dev cycle for that game to come out.
Clubhouse games.
So we probably won't see anything from them anytime soon either. Whether it's the next Mario Party in another couple of years, or just something different, minigame focused. So this is one that's close to you, Bryce. So Monolith Soft.
Oh, baby.
So just hit me with it right now. When do you reckon we'll see something next from Monolith Soft? We obviously got Xenoblade Definitive Edition earlier this year, which was ported and made by them. Do you think we'll see a third game in the series, or exported, or what are you feeling from them?
For a long time, they've struggled with staffing, and it's mainly because they also assisted on games like Breath of the Wild, and they're also more than likely assisting on Breath of the Wild 2 as well.
Yeah,
so
they definitely will be, yeah.
You know, it's not going to happen anytime soon. They did have a announcement for a well, they were hiring for a project a while ago that definitely I don't think it would have been Definitive Edition, because I dare say Definitive Edition would have been well in development by the time they were hiring.
Yeah.
But given that the way that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had ended, this is spoilers, but it does it does allude to the fact that there is like an impending 3 anyway, which, you know, given time, we'll hear something about it. But whether it's within this generation or the next one is like entirely uncertain. I think the only thing that they could possibly do, like right this moment, just to get a game out in the wild, is port X, which they've been reluctant on doing, and everybody's not. Like, everybody's starting to wake up to X, because they're kind of just like, wow, X was actually a really cool in concept game for Xenoblade that never took off because the Wii U sucked.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping.
Yeah, sorry. When I was watching 2014's E3 Direct the other day, and that's when that game was announced. And I still remember my feeling when they have like the mech on top of the cliff, and it like does the pan across the world. And like in 2014, and even now, it's like, wow, it's impressive, man. It was just like a really cool game, and it wasn't much of a graphical powerhouse, but just the way it looked and what you did was really cool. And it's a game I need to play. And I think after watching that Direct, I was actually like, you know what, I want to go back and actually play some Wii U games. X being one of them. But it's one of those risks where it's like, oh, what if it gets ported to the Switch and I'm stuck with my save file on halfway through on Wii U, and yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
With me playing Xenoblade Chronicles X first, I didn't really get the combat system, which kind of made me feel a little bit icky about it, and I kind of fell out of it after about anywhere between 5 to 10 hours. Once I played the first game, emulated, of course.
Of course.
I started to get a handle on it, and I started to understand it more. And then Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I really started to get a handle on it, and understand exactly like the nuances of what I should be aware of, and like how AI party members tend to act to certain things. Even though they're completely separate games, they do have like these little things where they just sort of act the same between each games, to the point where you can sort of pick out what they're going to do next. And while they run on auto run and they try to follow you up as much as they can, you do know where their strengths and weaknesses lie. And for X, like, I think that was like the biggest problem I was having, was trying to figure out how these party members interact like on a safer level. So I went back to X after finishing those two, after not touching my Wii U in years, like literal years. And it's the only Wii U game I've gone back to play to this day, and I'm very, very glad I did. I enjoyed every moment of it, even when I was just playing for that 10 hours before I put it down. Like, I was just having fun running around the world, because the world is ginormous and there's so much to see, and there's like huge, ginormous monsters that, like, you wouldn't even think you'd see in a video game unless it was like think like levels of Shadow of the Colossus type huge. Probably even bigger in some respects, but like the drive for me to go back and finish that game after finishing the other two was like, all right, I'm going back and finishing it because I've developed this big love of Xenoblade, and going back and finishing it was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done. So in video gaming, that is. So I really do want it ported just so I can get the online functionality part of it, because by the time I'd gone back to it, the online functionality was dead. So it was sort of like I would love to see that community rise back up again and give it another crack with a better install base for one, and really give X and like another proper go, because just going through that world in its own is enough for me to go back and jump in and have fun. So, yeah.
Like I think just like looking at from the very much the outside, just it would be cool to get a port of X next year, but I don't know if they want to be releasing 2 sort of ports or definitive editions in a row. But we'll see, because I think it's definitely a game that will hopefully come eventually. Considering
the fact that like Wii U ports are in the droves now, and it's obviously not too hard to port them over, because otherwise they wouldn't be porting them over in droves, and the fact that they already have a limited team as it is, and some of that team's obviously going to be working on Breath of the Wild too. I think it's very possible it will be another port in a row for them. And the demand has gotten higher and higher ever since Chronicles Definitive Edition came out. They're like, please just give us the whole collection on there. Like, because if we get X on there, that's it. They've got all of the Xenoblade on there. So it's just like, cool. And hopefully it pushes on and they sort of get the hint. They're like, all right, we'll port it over. That's kind of what the angle that everybody's going for when asking for this. So I would not be disappointed if it was another port and that was announced for next year and it was one of their filler games, rather than something brand new. Yeah, I don't think anybody would have complaints, really, to be honest. It's a game that deserved a hell of a lot more attention for how technically impressive it was.
Yeah, for sure. So the next one that's on the list, and this is where it starts getting a little bit murky as far as what games they've made and not just had their hand in sort of supporting other studios, is 1UP Studios. And long-time Nintendo fans will probably know these guys as Brownie Brown. And some standout games that they've made in the past is Mother 3. And they've also... looks like they've lent a hand in Super Mario 3D Land, Fantasy Life, which was on the 3DS, and that was actually published by Level 5, as well as Flipnote Studios 3D, Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and probably most recently Wii Fit Adventure. But they also looks like they've had a supporting role in Animal Crossing New Horizons. So when this is where it gets a bit murky, because it's kind of hard to know like exactly what they're up to and how many people they've got helping on Animal Crossing and how many people they've got on a unique game. And from the figures here of how many employees they have as of 2020, it's only 60, so very small team. But yeah, this is where it gets murky, because Nintendo's sort of move things around, so it's hard to know when exactly like we'll see like stuff from 1UP Studios. Because we can't just go, all right, Treasure Tracker came out now. There's been 3 years in between. Maybe we're getting something pretty imminent next year, but it's a bit harder than that with that. So who knows when we get something from 1UP Studio, but yeah, don't know on that one.
Yeah, don't know at all.
Yeah, IQ that came out recently in the news. So basically, this is where all the leaks came from, all the Nintendo leaks. From hacking into IQ servers. So IQ were basically made to sort of get Nintendo hardware and games into China. But I'll bring up the article here. I'll give you a bit more information on They're a support company. It was founded as a joint between Wei Yan and Nintendo in 2002 as a Chinese video game console manufacturer company. The following year, the company released the IQ Player, and the company had manufactured and distributed Nintendo products for the mainline of China market under the IQ brand in 2018. Sorry. By 2018, Nintendo had ceased any official distribution of older game consoles into mainland China under the IQ brand. Nintendo partnered with Tencent to bring its Nintendo Switch into the heavily regulated Chinese market by the end of 2019. Since 2017, IQ continues operations by offering customer support for any previously unreleased products, translating games. In 2019, IQ began to hire for developers with programmers and testers, indicating that the company was transitioning to be a development company to support game projects for development division Nintendo EPD. So IQ are now becoming a support group for main Nintendo games at the EPD. So that's pretty cool. Just a little interesting tidbit. Obviously, we don't know any they don't have a big reputation for making games, but they're going to be another one that's going to be sort of in the credits, as say, for some of these games.
Yeah.
All right, so this is where it gets real messy. Now we're going into actual Nintendo groups. So there's Nintendo Network Service Database. So what do these guys do? It's got Nintendo European Development and Research, Nintendo Technology Development. If I click on them, that's the thing. Like nothing anymore just has straightforward names.
They all just want to confuse you now.
Yeah, because before they were just labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, main groups at Nintendo. Whereas now it's pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know the main Mario developer, which was a EPD Group 1 initially before the change in 2018. I'm just gonna roll with that. So they basically do the 3D Mario games, and they were on a schedule for every 3 years getting a brand new Mario title out. So with Mario Odyssey coming out at the end of 2017, now we're in 2020, 3 years later. That's why I'm pretty confident that we are at least going to see ports of a Mario game, even if it's not a brand new one, because development might have been slowed down by COVID. But that's why I'm pretty certain that they're probably going to be the next ones to have a game announced, whether it is just ports or a bit of a collection together. Sorry, I just got distracted. The rain is coming down again, and I'm hearing it. It makes me worried.
Unless Paper Mario was supposed to be, I mean, I know it's not developed by them, but at the same time,
well, that's the thing.
Supposed to be this year's Mario game.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's Intelligent Systems. They've been making the Paper Mario games forever, and in the initial, we talked about just a bit earlier, but the initial leaks were Paper Mario, Pikmin 3, then the Mario 3D World port, as well as the collection. Yeah. So I guess going off the old terminology as well, MPD Group 2, who usually do The Legend of Zelda, produced by Mr. Onuma, who obviously did Breath of the Wild. Obviously, Breath of the Wild 2 has already been announced. We know that's going to be coming one day, at the very least. It's a thing that's going to be happening, so who knows? Bryce put his hands up sometime. Bryce, when's your renewed bet? When's it happening?
Renewed bet. I'd probably hunkered down Q3, Q4 2021. Because by the time it's either Q3, Q4 2021 or around the same date the Breath of the Wild 1 was released. The reason being is because if they are going to miss the Christmas deadline this year, then they've already missed the mark, right? That's where all the big sales of it are going to be, whatever. If they move it towards around the time that Breath of the Wild was released, it would sort of be like a good like proper gap, I guess, between the two games in terms of like the exact amount of years between each one. But Q3, Q4 also works as it's sort of starting to peak into the holiday season again as well. So like Q3 into Q4. And that's when they would pick up more sales for it. It would also be the 35th year of Zelda. So any time is really good. Like I think that's the one thing that makes it really hard to gauge is any time that year is technically good for a Zelda release. So those are kind of just my two points where I'm like, that's definitely where they could release them.
That'd be good. Next up, so this is a company that I came aware of through Metroid Prime Hunters on 3DS, but Nintendo's software technology, and I actually misspoke when I said Retro Studios was the only American developer on the thing. Nintendo Software Technology is an American video game developer, and it was created as a first-party developer to create games for the North American market. And so one of my favorite games of theirs is Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS, and other games you'll probably recognize is Mario vs Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. They did the translation from Japanese to English for Sin and Punishment. They worked on Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and they've done other Mario vs Donkey Kong games as well as they actually ported Super Mario Maker for 3DS as well. And most recently, by the look of things, they've been supporting indie developers to bring games to Switch. So at 2017, at the launch for Switch, they supported Snipper Clips. And most recently, in 2019 and 2020, they've supported the Sketches, or the Stetches, sorry. I don't know if you remember that game when it came out. I never actually got to play it. And only recently, Good Job, which was an indie game that came out, they helped development support on that too. So they haven't sort of done their own game in a long time. It wasn't since 2016 with Mini Mario and Friends, the Amiibo Challenge, sort of free-to-play game on Wii U. That was the last game, but most recently they've just been porting Wii U games to 3DS and Captain Toad to Switch. Oh, and 3DS too. I forgot that came to 3DS, Captain Toad. I completely forgot about that.
It did. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like reading through this and actually like learning
You're
stuff
having
too.
some clarity moments, yeah.
Yeah, because they did the Nintendo 64 emulator for the Wii. They did the Kirby channel for the Wii. They did the Wii U chat.
Yeah, right.
Wii Street U.
You mean the Wii U chat that didn't work and we tried to get work on several occasions and it didn't?
Yeah, maybe not the best bit on their resume there. But yeah, that's always an interesting one because I always remember that they made Metroid Prime Hunters, and it wasn't a Retro Studios thing, and that's why I feel like the single player was so cut together and just like whatever, but the multiplayer was fantastic. And with I think with their aim to sort of appeal more to the American market, I feel like that's why the multiplayer was so good, especially back in 2005 when Halo was king and like Call of Duty was starting to take off and all that. So that's probably where they come up to with that.
I know Hunter's story is kind of bland and boring and stuff like that, but I do think that more or less it comes down to repetitive design, whereas the lore of the stuff and all that, if you're willing to scan everything, was fairly juicy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Just the scanning in all the Prime games was like, I guess interesting if you want all those little tidbits. And I did find myself in Prime Hunters just like scanning way too much because there's a lot to scan. And like if you want that little percentage to go up, you've got to make sure you miss nothing, because if you don't scan the boss and you move on, that's it.
Yeah, you're stuffed. Yeah.
Which typically looking back on now, I actually hate that when you can like miss stuff. But it is what it is.
And then the fact I think you had to scan every individual boss as well, considering, but in consideration of the fact that like every time you went to a new world, the main boss was the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it was just like either
Yeah.
the tower or the flower thing.
Yep. Yep. And you had to scan it no matter what. It doesn't matter if you technically already seen it before, you had to scan it again.
Yeah, because technically it had like a different weapon. It's like, okay, I guess that counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're just getting to the last bit now, and it goes off like the central buildings that Nintendo owns and what development teams are in each one. So this is how much I think they need to actually like nail down their marketing for each studio, because I think it's really beneficial for both Xbox and PlayStation to have like, you know, Xbox studios, you know, you can point to 343, you can point to Double Fine, you can point to whoever, the same way PlayStation does with all their studios. But with Nintendo, it's just so, they're just like, it's a Nintendo game. But personally for me as a big nerd, I want to know like
which one developed it. Yeah.
Yeah, which one? Because like, you know, with like Nintendo Directs in the past, like the 2014 I just watched, like you have a good feel or feel good, like a good feel, sit down and be like, all right, these are the producer and all of that, and this is what we're thinking about in the development process of making the game. But we haven't got that recently, and just with like everything changing around and not knowing how these games are made necessarily, it's kind of frustrating as a fan that like even me who pays this much attention to it's like, okay, so this team helped on this game, but then
yeah,
and it's not like Sony's not in that position either. Like if you look at the credits for The Last of Us Part 2, there's development studios in China and different special effects studios all over the world helping with the game. It's not just all Naughty Dog, but they do have the Naughty Dog branding that it was made by them.
Yeah.
So there's four buildings that Nintendo's mainly located in. So there's Nintendo Central Office, which is in Kyoto. It says here formerly Nintendo EAD Research and Development. Then there's the Nintendo Kyoto Research Institute, which has Nintendo SPD Intelligent Systems, which moved, because we talked about like moving buildings a few episodes ago. I was like, all right, which Game Freak is now in a building with Nintendo. So what's the Nintendo SPD? Is Nintendo Software Planning and Development Division, commonly abbreviated SPD, which was a research and planning development division housed inside Nintendo Development Center in Kyoto, Japan. Development had two departments: software and planning and development department, which was co-produced games, external developers, and software. Yeah, so this is just a mess. But I think from going through the studios, whether it's partners, second party developers, or just like some of the Nintendo developer teams we can nail down, I think 2020 was always going to be a slow year, whether it was COVID or not, because just the way a lot of these releases lined up, whether it was from Next Level Games or it was a Mario game or a Zelda game, whether it was Mario Party or a Mario sports game, it was always going to be a year that was going to be pretty quiet. So I don't think this was always, I don't really think this is affected by COVID necessarily, but is there anyone else you can think of, Bryce, where you're like, oh no, they could potentially release a game early 2021, but...
I mean, I think it more comes down to collaboration events than anything that would have fueled this year. And whether that's been, you know, delayed or pushed back by COVID or what have you is up in the air. I mean, there's still a lot of games that are sort of, you know, intended for this year, whether it be like Bravely Default 2 or what have you. And at the end of the day, like whether they had any plans with any other developers or whether they had anything in-house, I do think you're correct to a certain degree. COVID hasn't really stopped heaps from happening, but I do feel like what it's going to affect is the holiday season more than anything else. That being said, like with the Microsoft side and the Sony side of things, they've tried to let it not hinder them too much at all, except for maybe Halo's delay, but that was more down to quality issues. And wanting to work on that so it's more up to fan demand. And unfortunately, COVID does elongate that because they have to do a lot of their shit remotely to stay safe in most cases. So yeah, it was always going to be a slow year. Whether it's even slower than it was before because of some pushbacks or what have you is probably another question, because they are unusually quiet this year.
Yeah.
Which is a little concerning and sort of speaks to the fact that, you know, COVID's obviously affected something. Whether it's affected more than what we see is really the question, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, for like 2018, it felt like a pretty packed year, but the biggest games did come towards the end, which were like Pokemon Let's Go, as well as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But throughout the rest of the year, there wasn't like a massive amount of games that year either. It was a pretty slow year. Then the next year we got, you know, Link's Awakening, we got Luigi's Mansion 3, we got Marvel's Ultimate Alliance. Like, there was a lot of games last year. Like, it was a packed year. So I feel like this year was just one of those years where it's a bit of a slow one again. And maybe next year we'll be getting a few more games, or maybe next year is when we'll really see the effects of development being slowed down by COVID. But yeah, I just felt like that was a bit of a good topic to go over, because a lot of people are like, where are the games? It's like, well, they're making them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, when it comes to big titles on their lists that are completely brand new and aren't ports, like when you're looking into the future, the only thing we're really very clear on is Zelda that's in-house. So
yeah,
I guess it's just a wait and see thing. So we'll definitely hear something this year, I think, but it won't be to the end of the year. And expect at least the next 2 months to be pretty dry on news.
Yeah, I do too. I hope we get maybe a direct just going over some of the Mario stuff, if that is real. If not, it's going to be a pretty disappointing holiday season for Nintendo. But you know what? I'm pretty lax on it all. You know, it's been a pretty crap year for everyone. So it's kind of like, well, it's been pretty bad for Nintendo. They don't owe us anything. But I think also like a Mario sort of collection would be like the perfect thing just to sort of distract us from all the crap that's gone on this year. Yeah. All right, Bryce, that brings us to the end, my friend. Anything else you'd like to say before we peter off into the distance?
No, I think I've said enough.
I think I've said enough. We have said enough. It's been a long episode. Everyone, thank you very much for listening to the House of Mario, episode 155. It's been a long, like I said, it's been a long one. So if you've reached this far, thank you very much. You supporting this podcast means the world to both myself and Bryce, and we couldn't thank you anymore. If you'd like to follow myself, you can follow me on Twitter at iDruby. You can follow the show at the House of Mario. Bryce loves it. And you can follow Bryce at IVRevan. Don't forget, we are launching the House of Mario Encore this week. Go to your podcast service of choice, search the House of Mario Encore, give it a subscribe, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If we reach 50, we will give away a Nintendo Switch game to one of you lovely people who took the time to do it. And I know a lot of the time when people are like, oh, please leave us a review, it would really help us out. I'm like, yes, I will. But like, you know, you're busy at the time, you're doing things, you're not on your phone. But I really do ask, because it really will help us with getting that show off the ground. And that's what we would love to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Bryce, Nintendo Jukebox this week is by Pelike, and it is a cover of Lifelight from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And
beautiful.
And I just want to say that Pelike is one of my favorite artists who does covers on YouTube. He does amazing covers of a lot of anime songs. He's done like all of the Pokemon themes, all the Digimon themes. He just does heaps. So he's definitely worth subscribing to on YouTube, as well as following on Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever service you use. So definitely do that. And since we are on YouTube now, I've got to be a bit wary about how Nintendo Jukebox is going to work now. But copyright is of 2020 Pelican, so don't sue us, Pelican. We're trying to, don't know. You've got like over 1 million subscribers, so you don't need us at all. But I mean, here we are.
or you could just cut the episode at the end there.
Yeah.
That's really up to. Like, we never discussed this actually.
Yeah. Well, it's going to go with the music this week.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens. But if you're listening to audio, here it is as usual. So until next week, guys, the House of Mario, or the doors to the House of Mario, not just the House of Mario. Like, we're still here, but it's just the doors are closed. They're closed. Bryce, can you close them for me? They're a bit stuck. It took your time there, mate. All right, catch you later.
Jesus, mate.
Colors weave into a spire of flame. Distant sparks go to a pestilent name. Bear this torch against the cold of the night. Search your soul and reawaken the undying light. On that day, when the sky